What's up, brothers and sisters? It's your brother G World and G World 7 Space D. I want to talk about something real quick. I haven't been on for a while, but I'm definitely just want to talk about this real quick. It's called this book called The One World Tartarians, the greatest civilization ever to be erased from history, and it's by James W. Lee. Sound like one of the Confederate names, Mr. Lee. It's Indian. I'm going to show you a picture of the gentleman right here. His biography. It's James Lee. Alright. I'm going to go to this book. I'm going to go to this page here. And, right. I guess I'm going right here. Yes, here it is right here. It says right here, the first natives of America, Black Moors. He goes on to talk about author and historian Chancellor Williams said the original Moors, like the original Egyptians, were Black Africans. All right, the Black Africans, and he goes on. And the 16th century English playwright William Shakespeare used the word Moor as a synonym for African. His contemporary Christopher Marlowe also used African and Moor interchangeably. Black soldiers, specifically identified as Moors, were actively recruited by Rome and served in Britain, France, Switzerland, Austria, Hungary, Poland, and Romania. Saint Maurice, patron saint of medieval Europe, was only one of many black soldiers and officers under the employ of the Roman Empire. All right, now that's there, but he goes on, and I'm gonna skip over a little bit. Right here, another huge NWO lie, New World Order lie, the transatlantic slave trade out of Africa. Okay, so the story goes. Some 12.5 million Africans were taken from their homes and forced aboard slave ships that were destined for the New World. About 10.7 million people survived the horrors of the Middle Passage between 1526 and 1866. Only to end up in bondage in sugar, rice, cotton, and tobacco plantations throughout the Americas and the Caribbean. Now, why would they bring in people to do tobacco better than people who are already living here? Okay, whatever. The transatlantic slave trade is the largest forced migration in history. Black people are indigenous to the Americas. I repeat, black people are indigenous to the Americas. Black Native Americans are not a result of so-called Red Indian mixing with slaves. The so-called Red Indian comes from mixing with European colonists and the Asians that were in America before Columbus. The first Native Americans were Mongolian Tartarians, Black Asian Moors. Melville Herskovits, a European anthropologist, was one of the originators of the out of Africa theory. He's the one who started that African stuff. Herskovits never had any historical, archaeological, or anthropological proof that the black people of the Americas were ever derived from West or North Africa. Consequently, Herskovits crafted the theory that blacks arrived in America from the transatlantic slave trade, which allegedly brought in more than 10 million African slaves. According to the National Archives of Spain and Smithsonian records, there was no evidence to prove 70,000 ships with black Africans ever sailed to the Americas. Melville carried out the teachings of his mentor Frank Boas to make the original copper-colored races of the Americas inferior and the European presence superior. Before this time, blacks coming from Africa through the transatlantic slave trade story never existed. As a result, Melville's work has been fragmented and used as propaganda by writers like his Harold Corlander, he wrote The African back in 1967, and Alex Haley, which further perpetuated the myth of the transatlantic slave trade through the hit movie Roots. Alex Haley was sued for that. I think he ended up having to be paying like $600,000 or something because he plagiarized Harold Corlander's book, The African, written back in 1967. That's what the story of Roots come from. Roots is fake as hell. Okay, Americans were black people, and they were not brought here in ships. Instead, they were enslaved right here in their own land. If they were brought on ships, the numbers are extremely exaggerated. It was published that 15 million to 20 million slaves arrived in America between 1540 and 1850 over a 310-year period, according to U.S. history books. The Stewart synopsis points out a few questions that should be examined. Stewart, that's the sister who wrote The Matrix and the Terminator. She has her own website. She has a book dealing with black Aboriginal people. Over a period of time, 300 years, is it fair to say that 60,000 slaves were transported annually to the Americas, or has transported of slaves to the Americas been one big myth? I see it's one big myth. The largest seagoing vessel carried 400 slaves, but not all the ships were that large. All right, here's a picture of Aboriginal blacks in this book. You know, you can't tell how these Pan-Africans nothing because they supposedly know everything. And I was arguing, debating one guy, and he kept throwing to me about Africans did this, Africans did that. But I had told him that the Mayans were Egyptians, and the Mayans was like the high priest to the Egyptians. They were the Egyptians from across the water, and they would do the ceremonial services and stuff like that. But there's the older Egypt is here in Americas. The one in Africa is not as old as Egypt in America. The oldest pyramids in America, the largest pyramid in America, the oldest mummies are here in America, not Africa. All right. Time of passage was 3 to 4 months. That means 200 vessels, ships per year will have to travel carrying 300 people. One ship could make 3 passages per year. The transatlantic slave trade database says that there were 1,100, 1,400 voyages made over a 300-year period. If that is the case, and each ship carried 400 people, the total number will be 560,000 Africans were transported. It still does not add up. Number 4, we already know that over 83% of all Americans with African ancestry have Native American blood. Number 5, did Native American tribes help slaves escape, or were Americans with African ancestry already part of Native American nations? And it goes on. And let's see. I'm gonna skip through some of them. Well, after 20 years, a royal adventurer with 15 ships has transported between 90,000 and 100,000 slaves. That is a long way from 15 million to 20 million slaves who were supposedly brought to the Americas. Doesn't that leave a little over 14 million to 19 million people not accounted for? What's up with that? Or was a black-brown birth rate that more accelerated than the white birth rate? Excuse me. Okay? Here's a picture of that fake picture of these individuals like stacked up like sardines in a slave ship. That picture's fake. That picture's made way after slavery. What's up with that? Let's see. Okay. The calculated median of 15 to 20 million will be 17.5 million. Divided by 400 people. The largest slave vessel that comes out to 43,750 ships. Can you show me a record where this many trips occurred, or the number of trips calculated by the so-called experts? Figure exists of 27,000 minus 35,000 voyages. The same thing happened with the Holocaust in Germany during World War II. 6 million people were supposedly killed, but there are not that many names referenced who died, totaling 6 million. In fact, the official story has reduced the number to under 1 million people. Stewart synopsis lists these black native tribes. She has the Washita there of the Louisiana Midwest, the Yamasee of the Southeast, the Iroquois, the Cherokee, the Blackfoot, the Pequot, Mohegan of Connecticut, the Black Californians, Califians. Cal in California literally means black, after the name of the great Mama Queen Califia, the Olmecs of Mexico, Darenites of Panama. You also can talk about the Linian Lenape, the Wampanoag, the Cree, whatever. Okay, and then here's something else, and I'm going to skip down because this is a long one here. But it says, of the new sites on the list, none has darker paths than Vallango Wharf, built in 1811. The wharf functioned as South America's leading slave port. Okay, it was here that as many as 900,000 enslaved African men, women, and children were held before being sold on Brazilian slave markets. Those who didn't survive the ordeal, who died during the transatlantic journey or sometimes after it, arriving at the wharf, were buried in mass graves. Mexico claims African slaves as well. You know, Mexico is supposed to be the place where they have a bunch of. It was a holding place where a bunch of slaves was coming there in and out of there. But people need to understand that indigenous people of Mexico were black. Okay, Mexico's named after a black king, King Meshi. Okay, Mexico claims African slaves as well. A total of 186,766 Africans were imported into Mexico during the 300 years of the Spanish slave trade. Looking for the appearance of modern Mexicans, it becomes clear that the now New World Order just made up the numbers without any proof of evidence of veracity of these claims. There's no way 186,766,000 black-skinned Mongols could be responsible for the pigmented side of well over 100 million light and dark-skinned mestizos. The American Negro or Indian or the Black Moor or Mongolian Tartarian, the Black Asian, is the oldest man on Earth. The oldest chromosome on Earth was found in a man from South Carolina and is unrelated to African lineage. There are more pyramids. Hold up, let me get the page. There are more pyramids in America than anyone else. The Mayach or the Jai, as in the Mijai, co-conquered the Nile Valley, Arabia, Afghanistan, India, Vietnam, and Cambodia. The statues of Buddha are simply images of Osiris. The Buddha statue that was found, large Buddha statues found in the Grand Canyon. The statues of Buddha are simply images of Osiris, the ruler who conquered the known world in a remote epoch of human history. There are many sources the Old Testament takes place in the Americas. Mexico is the original land of the American Negro, where the Olmec, Aztec, Toltec, etc. In North America, he is the Algonquin, Choctaw, Washita, Pequot, Wampanoag, Lenape, Iroquois, etc. The Spanish and Portuguese captured and sold what they called Negro de Terra into Europe slave markets. The Dutch and English didn't even enter Africa until the late 1700s, yet slavery started in 1492. Moors being expelled from Europe. They ruled Europe, the black nobility. Columbus was a Portuguese Moor named Salvador Ferdinand Zarco, and many other European monarchs in Europe were also Negroes who came to America as they were being pushed out of Europe by white European Catholics. You gotta remember, Christopher Columbus was, if he existed, was a Negro himself. He was a Moor. He was a black man. All right, so when you tear down them statues, it was doing all summer long, saying that Christopher Columbus was a white supremacist. He wasn't white. Christopher Columbus was actually a melanated man. All right, he was what you call a Negro, a black man, whatever you name it. That's what Christopher Colon was. Christopher Colombo was. All right, that's what he was. All right. The conquistadors were sent to the West Indies to destroy the kingdoms of the blacks and reduce them to servitude and slavery. It was known as the Dum Diveris, the doctrine of discovery and the Inquisition, and gave Catholic kingdoms the right to murder, rape, enslave, and torture all those under the authority of the Vatican and Pope. Remember, people, that's what they said, the conquest of Mexico and Peru, the conquest of Memphis and Jerusalem. They basically came here. When the Spanish came here, they destroyed, burned down their books, murdered, and killed many of the indigenous black people who were here. I mean, they destroyed the civilization. Now, the black people were kicking their butts and ruling. And so the Asians who were non-blacks who were here, who was a slave of the blacks who were ruling here, and the whites who were slaves of the blacks who were ruling here, and some of the other black tribes who had to pay a tax because the black empires who were ruling, the ones who were ruling, they got together and to take down the black rulership, like the Aztecs, the Incas. They got together to do that. So it wasn't them coming in, the Spanish coming in to defeat them. No, the Spanish had help. Then the Spanish turned against the so-called Eurasian people. After they use them to help them use them as well as some of these Negro blacks to take down the black empires here in America. So, all right, let's see. America is the old world, and Columbus called his voyage the last crusade to conquer the holy lands of Mexico and Peru, which means Peru. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, Perusalem. Peru, Peru. Peru, or House of Heru, or Jerusalem, which became Jerusalem. It is also known as the navel of the world. Teotihuacan means city of Tehuti. That's Tehuti, Tehuacan. Tehuti means Tehuti or Thoth. And Tenochtitlan, which became Mexico City, which is built on top of old Memphis, means city of Enoch. Mexico is a name for Moses or Mechi, like Moshe. The Old Testament contains volcanoes, corns, bears, and tobacco, all of which are native to America. Utah, which is also known as Ptah and Utah, and contains the city of Moab. The Great Salt Lake is the Dead Sea. There are more pyramids and megalithic structures in Americas than anywhere else, including the Nile Valley. The NWO tells the story backwards. The Negro is the Indian or copper-colored indigenous people of the Americas, who is actually a redskin. Many think black people are black, yet there are many shades of copper, which is the color of the earth. If you look in old dictionaries, you will see that nigger and Indian were synonymous in that color is simply short for copper color. Why do you think they keep changing the titles from India to Negro to color to African American? The black Moor Negro is the most copied man on earth. It is Toltecs, Mayan, Aztecs, Mixtecs, Inca, Olmecchi, Natchez, all were black Moors. Most historians, anthropologists, and scholars refer to the Olmecs as the mother culture of pre-Hispanic Mexico. The presence of the Olmecs predate the Mayan civilization by more than 1,500 years and the Aztecs in Mexico by as many as 2,500 years, which would, indeed, make it the oldest pre-Columbian civilized society in Mesoamerica, emerging from the jungles of Mexico's southernmost Gulf Coast. The Olmec influence spread through Central America and manifests itself in art, architecture, religious rituals, and other areas. There is enough evidence for architectural digs to support the idea that the Olmec civilization possessed several of the characteristics of a civilization: a social structure, political structure, an economic structure, religious, and art. The Tolan of Aztec mythology was known for its sumptuous palaces and awe-inspiring buildings made from gold, jade, turquoise, and Kutzal feathers. Let me tell you something, man. They had ancient highways, gold, paved streets. They had it all here in the Americas, man. This is our homeland. America was the greatest. Or the Americas were the greatest. This was Atlantis. All right, but we continue to identify ourselves with a place thousands of miles away. This is our homeland. And until we really study our history, we will continue to be lost. So black Americans, so-called African American, we are Aboriginal people to this land. We are the indigenous people of this land. We are the original people of this land. We come from the earth, the soil, the dirt of this land. This is our land. Remember that. Don't ever say America's not yours. America is our land. All right? Okay, then I'm going to go. There's so much written about this, but I'm going to go further. I'm going to turn here. And right here it talks about it has pictures of, right here, Montezuma. And then it has a picture of this is listed in the Aztec couple. Last Aztec couple. And then this is obviously Vincent Guerrero right here. Cruising down the street, Guerrero. Okay. But, yeah, this is a pretty good book. There's more stuff in here. I wasn't going to read it all. But it talks about the Tartarian civilization. And it also talks about, the World Fair, how that technology comes from Moorish technology. we need to stop simplifying ourselves as being descendant of African slaves. And I've been debating people in this, arguing with people in this. But some of my people, I think probably in the 60s when a lot of them Negroes went to these little university and colleges, man, they became Africanized. And this total fact is that we black people come from multiple places. I mean, Frank Joseph, who has the who writes, he's the editor of the Ancient American magazine. He talks about there's very different black groups that came into America, and he talking about how one group came from one side, like in the eastern part. You had another group who was here came from the west to the west coast. So you had various different black groups coming in and out to America. Some selling here, and the people from America selling out. We never talk about the people of the Americas selling out using these what you call these wind currents, which are like conveyor belts, like the highways of the sea, to travel globally around the world. So we weren't just here in the Americas. Now, you also had in Africa, you had many different mega lakes, you know, massive big mega lakes within the continent of Africa for them to travel throughout the continent before the Sahara and the Kalahari Desert arrived there. So, but it was always our people, no matter where they were at, were able to travel by boat. The water, the seas was a great exploration for them. So they were able to travel by boat to see the world. They weren't just stagnated and they couldn't do anything, but trying to explain to many of our people that we arrived here using ships. When the Egyptians or Tamarians or the Comedians, they used large ships to travel long distance. They could have used papyrus, but they didn't use papyrus. They used those wooden ships. And lots of times they break them ships down and they have the instructions to build them back up to do another sail. I have a book dealing with Egyptian boats, but they use wooden ships to do their long sailing. And they had some massive ships. So do not underestimate the brilliance of your ancestors. They carved into natural rock. When you look at the Grand Canyon, they traveled over to the Grand Canyon and carved into that rock. There's proof of the Olmecs were in, what you call the Olmec G people, they were in Canada, carved in a rock, large heads wearing football style helmets, man. So these were not no ignorant people. Also, there's Buddha statue there too. So these are not ignorant people. We traveled the damn world. So we gotta stop simplifying ourselves, saying that we came here in 1619 as a damn slave. That is a lie. Okay, that stuff that has to stop. That is a lie. There's too much information out here that will tell you that so-called black people, melanated people, ruled the damn world. When you look at every single continent, we were there. We were there. And there's so many books out here. But I spend a lot of money in books, man. I spend thousands of dollars on books and acquiring documentation. And I come from a family for the educators. So I know that you got to put in the research in order to get a reward. But it's very sad, though, I think, now that this is a serious dumbing down of society and having us just believe that we came here as slaves, that they brought us in ships packed up like sardines to sail across the Atlantic, knowing damn well more likely the Atlantic was very tumultuous and a tough sail to go by, even just with a crew of 10 people. More likely them ships would have sunk, if you want to have them packed up like sardines like this, traveling through the Atlantic Ocean. It doesn't make sense, man. And I think we need to start using our heads. Stop listening to these black historians who've been educated by white folks, either at the PWI, predominantly white institutions, or the HBCU, historically black colleges and universities, where a lot of brainwashing is going on there too, because they have a lot of white professors or foreign professors teaching that lie to our people. And like I said, I've graduated from the university and had a bunch of white professors teaching these lies. And, I knew they were teaching lies, so I had to go on my own and do my own research. But this stuff is, it's not, you can Google certain things, but when you want to really research and obtain this information, you can't just Google it. Google is not gonna have this stuff, man. You're gonna have to really make a commitment and do your research, man. You got to get like the bare knuckles, bare bones, man. Like the football linemen, put their hands, bare hands on the grass and the surface to make their play. You got to get your hands dirty, man. You're gonna have to get your hands dirty and really do the research, man, because you can't just believe what the media is telling you, and you know, especially coming from these non-melanated people or lack of melanin people, they will tell you anything, you know, everything. Damn near in this world comes from us, including like classical music. You think that that's white? No, classical is black. It's more like come from the black European Moors, you know. So remember, once the Spanish defeated the Moors in Europe, they went for the other Moors in America. All right, and there's various different type of black people here, man. Rome was here. The Persians were here. Man, in fact, when you look at some of these Aboriginal blacks over here, they look like the Etruscan people. Some of them look like the Etruscans. I mean, their hair, their physical features, they look like them. Those are the original Romans. All right, so many of the black folks look like that. You know, the Greece was here. All of them were here, man. People knew about the Americas, man. This was the land of gold, man. And then if you notice, a lot of these names has Al up in there or L up in there. L like El Paso, Texas, and stuff like that. Then you have like Malibu, California, which sounds, you just take the BU out, you get Molly. Come on, brothers and sisters, man. It's right there. It's in your face. The information in your face. There's a bunch of Muslims named all over this damn continent, man. Islamic names. It's all over the continent. It's right in your face. You gotta stop saying that you come from African slaves, because that's not true. If you look at those early slave postings, you will see pictures of people wearing tobacco type kilts, like, and tobacco type crowns. Tobacco is indigenous to America. Tobacco is indigenous to America. North Carolina known as Tobacco Road. That's indigenous to the Americas. That's not Africa. And then you look at the people holding a scepter, and a lot of them have pipes, smoking a pipe. You see some of your old grandpa used to smoke the pipe back in the day and play with his pipe. You know, you look at your old granddad or your grandma used to smoke that pipe, had that snuff too, boy. I'm telling you right now, that is our indigenous Aboriginal lineage right there. Those people were not African slaves, and it never said African on no slave poster or Negro. It had Hebrew on there. Some of them. We're not Africans. We are Aboriginal, indigenous, autochthonous, real Americans. All right? This is our land. The red, white, and blue is our land. You look at some image of the Chippewa. Had their hair combed out, man. Big old afros. You see brothers here had their hair combed out, man. The Chippewa will have colors, feathers of the red, white, and blue. Feathers that has the colors of red, white, and blue. Even some of the rulers here will have a red cape, blue pants, and a white shirt. That comes from us. That's ours. That's ours. All that's ours. All of that's ours. So we got to really break down and get to the bare bones of studying our history, man. Oh, we really do. We really do. And, you know, there's so much information out here about our history that we have allowed demons to distort our history, pimp our history, and and to try to destroy our name. Ivan Sertima, his book, I remember I read this before I read that came before Columbus, is Black Presence in Ancient America. At the end of the book, that book came out in the early 90s. At the end of that book, he talks about it was two different migrations, maybe three different migrations of ancient blacks who came into Americas. He talks about that in his book. So Van Sertima who's acknowledged the fact that the original people in Americas were black. But you also got to understand, though, when you study the civilization here, the oldest pyramids are in America. They over in the eastern part of Brazil near the Atlantic Ocean. They were made out of seashells. Many of them have been destroyed. All right, many of those pyramids have been destroyed. They use it for building roads and streets and other structures. They destroyed many of the pyramids in Brazil, which are older than the ones in Egypt. Also, the oldest mummies were here in America. The oldest cities were here in America. The oldest city was here in America. Like I said, the oldest mummies and the largest pyramid is in Mexico, not Egypt. And you look at the pyramids in the Americas, man, they're well designed, man. You had all those mounds in America. You had probably over 1 million mounds in North America. Now I think they're down to around 200,000 probably. A lot of them were destroyed to pave way for so-called larger cities and to build highways, which we already had our own highways here. We had highways here in America. Large mounds, great monuments. We did that. Our ancestors did that. And lots of times, see, also, the first whites that came here wasn't so-called European explorers. The first whites came in America, they were slaves of certain black tribes that were here in America. You know, as well as the Asians, they were over here. They were slaves too. They used to use them as sacrifices. They would sacrifice them. The black ruler would have their white servants and slaves. Once they die, they'll sacrifice their retainer slaves. So the indigenous people here did bring in white slaves to the Americas. Whites were brought here slaves originally to the Americas and to Africa. So when you hear people talking about white people weren't slaves, yes they were. They were slaves of certain um, certain blacks in their empires. Certain black empires did own white slaves here in America, and they used them as sacrifices. So they did do that. That's the truth. They did do that. But most of these white historians will not tell you that because they show them in a subservient position, and they show that black people ruling, black people ruling, they were in power. So I don't expect Europeans to actually be truthful in anything for the most part when it comes to our history. There's been a few, but most of them will just continue to lie about the true history of what black folks have done. So, just to mention that, I can mention this line right here. It says, Mexico is the original land of the American Negro, which is the Omeg, the Aztec, Toltec, North America, the Algonquin, Washita, Pequank, Wampanoag, Lenape, Iroquois, etc. I think I read that, but it's, this is our history, man. This is our culture, and America is basically Atlantis, All can agree and plainly see that the strong influence comes from the Toltecs, including the smaller Atlanteans, whether a trade empire, influential kingdom, city-state, or cultural movement. The Toltec civilization ended with the fall of Tula to outside northern invaders, sometimes in the 12th century. Most of the living quarters around the ceremonial center was abandoned by 1150 AD, and there's evidence of a huge fire sweeping through the city at about this time. This is our home, and I want brothers and sisters to take the time out to do more research with this, man. Do more research with this subject matter, because there's so much, man, out there. So I'm going to plug this brother's book right here, America is the True Old World. This is volume 2, The Promised Land. This is volume 1, Move Discovered. And I'm also going to plug Frank Joseph's magazine, Ancient America Magazine, Journal, Archaeology in the Americas Before Columbus, So, this is good journal. I just renewed my subscription to this, and you see, there's a mound right there, man. Moundville, West Virginia, man. So this is our history, man. All this is our history. Subscribe to that journal. That's a good journal to get. You want to learn more about the mounds that were built. That's an excellent journal to get. It's a book, another book. I got it buried somewhere, man. But it's so much out there that you should get dealing with our history. So yeah. So I'm just going to just tell brothers and sisters, man, keep doing the research, man. Keep doing the research, man, because all the information is there, but you're gonna have to put in the muscle. You got to put in the muscle. So um, I will start doing more videos. It's taking me a little while. I'm just reading my stuff, reading my books. I got so many books that I have that I just skim through that I need to read. But there's some good books out there that talk about history. Instead of investing your money in shoes and stuff like that, invest your money in books. Or you can get the PDF model, which is cheap, if you can get it, if they have it. But just continue to learn and strive and grow, brothers and sisters, because this is our history. We need to reclaim our history. We need to get it back. I believe that we will be in much better condition if we truly knew who we really are and stop allowing other people to tell us who we are. That's even other black people, man, who want to continue to believe a false narrative that all of us was brought over in some damn slave ships. So this is my little piece here, and I'm going to try to do more. I try to do it so fast as I try to rush through because I don't want the time to run out on me. But I'm just like, I continue to grow as a person, continue to learn more and more because you never stop learning, even with your college degrees. And we need to get in that mindset that what we're taught in these schools are a lie. But when we do attend these schools and we get our degrees, we got to realize that it doesn't stop. Learning is a lifetime experience, and it's something that it's a continuing process that you never stop doing, brothers and sisters. I want you to know that you never stop learning. You continue to learn and grow, and it's basically, to me, that's very rewarding. So I advise you, brothers and sisters. Now I guess I'm just rambling, but I just want you to really now get in groups. If you can't, if you're afraid to do it yourself, get in groups, get in study groups, or just basically pull that time out, man. Pull that time out there, put that muscle up in there, and do that research, man. Because this is something that we need to pass down to the next generation for them to really love themselves. One of the reasons, our enemy is trying various different ways, excuse me, to destroy us. They promote various different things to destroy us. If it's not, promoting miscegenation, and then you promoting drugs or alternative lifestyles, numerous different ways to try to prevent us from continually to reproduce and to continue to populate our image in this world. That's what the enemy will do. The enemy will try various different methods to destroy you.